Good morning. My name is Quentin Lister. I'm here today talking with Kayla Jessop, registered dietitian, and she's going to talk with us about nutrition and divorce today. And I wanted, as always, to give her the opportunity to introduce herself and give her name and contact information for those watching at home. So Kayla, take it away.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kayla Jessop. I'm a certified eating disorder registered dietitian. I'm also an approved supervisor. On a separate note from the dietetics world and nutrition world, I've also completed the intensive training in radically open dialectical behavior therapy. So it's basically a new evidence-based treatment to help folks who have more excessive self-control, you could say.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. And is there a way for people to get a hold of you after they view this if they'd like to get in contact with you and learn more?
Yeah, sure. So my website's probably the best way to get a hold of me. That's KaylaJessopNutrition.com. Pretty simple. There's like a contact page there. Or you can contact me through email. And that's Kayla@kjnutrition.net.
All right. Thank you so much. So Kayla, we talked a little bit beforehand, and so one thing that you had mentioned about is that people have, in your experience, right? Most people have disordered relationships with food, and so I mean, obviously that conjures specific ideas in my mind, but I'm curious, like what you mean by that and how you see that play out in your practice.
Nice, great question. Yeah, I think disordered relationship to food, meaning most people, as they grow up into maturity, they start to get these concepts that they need to look a certain way, whether that's to be big and bulky and muscular, or to be small or thinner, or maybe something else. And so usually dieting starts to set in. And nowadays it's earlier and earlier and earlier in life where kids are being put on diets. So when I say disordered relationship to food, I'm meaning, a lot of people have this idea that there are good foods and bad foods. And if they then eat a bad food, and let's say that's brownies, cookies, cupcakes, I don't know, whatever that is for you, they then, when they eat it, can start to feel like immense guilt and shame of, I'm now a bad person because I ate a bad food, which can then turn into, self-punishment, whether that's restricting heavier or binging or other things.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And so in your practice, so how would you say that is something that so what kind of things do you look at then when you're trying to help somebody? Like, is it, I don't know, I know in some areas of the therapy world, right, you have to deal with like denial, like the people don't necessarily accept that there is an issue, right, with
Yeah.
what they're doing. And so I don't know, do you find that a lot of the times that like oftentimes you have to like bring it up to people who meet with you, or are the people that meet with you, do they usually recognize, yeah, I think I could eat better, that kind of thing?
I think by the time they reach me, they have
Sure,
recognized that there's probably an issue going on because it's kind of rocking their world in several different ways. And
sure,
then there's also a lot of subtlety. I feel like a lot of folks are more on the disordered eating spectrum rather than an eating disorder spectrum. And in
sure.
that case, I do think there's a lot of denial because I think society as a whole really places a value on thinness. And so it's like, oh, everyone else is chronically dieting. Isn't that normal? When it's actually really not normal, and it's really harmful, not only to the body, but it's really, really harmful to the mind, to kind of be in this loop of failure, or I started a new diet and now I failed it again. And their weight might perpetually be going up and they don't understand why. And so I think, even somebody who's going through a divorce or something else that's really, I imagine, incredibly stressful, if the foundation of your life is really unsettling, the chances of it coming out with disordered food behaviors increases, right? So a lot of our sessions is also talking about like self-care. How can we help our clients not only nourish their body maybe more adequately, or helping them get out of this cycle of denial, or getting out of this cycle of restrict and binge, but also like how can they care for themselves in other ways besides food.
Right, right. Yeah, no, and yeah, you definitely, I think, touched on a vein there with divorce, right? I think that's definitely um, where it's something that it's a highly emotional thing, and it's something that is that creates a lot of stress and generates a lot of stress for people, and those are typically the times, I guess, that usually whatever kind of either habits or whatever we've developed, they come out definitely even more so at that time, right? As we're trying to, I guess, as people try to cope with things. And so, that being said, like what is something that, so for instance, someone in divorce might, they might feel like, okay, like my ex-spouse was really good at this whole like getting meals ready, making sure everybody was, eating well, that kind of thing. But now it's like, now I'm taking on more of that responsibility or whatever, and I don't necessarily know kind of like where to start, and so what's something that like for someone perhaps that might be in that situation, what might be the first thing for them to look at and, and to kind of like get going and like making sure that they're taking care of themselves, but also they're able to take care of the people that, that they're either sharing custody with, their ex-spouse with, or anything like that.
Oh, that's such a good question. And the first thing that comes to my mind is like simplify, because I feel like, whoever their spouse or partner was, if they were maybe doing like amazing stuff, like that doesn't mean you necessarily need to in order to get food out on the table. Like maybe it is going grocery shopping and getting some very simple, like frozen stuff or some canned stuff, and then supplementing that if you can with maybe something fresh. But if you can't, also like don't feel maybe the burden and stress of like I need to make all of these meals all of a sudden and they all have to be fresh and homemade, because they really don't, and it's going to be okay type of thing. So maybe just starting super simple if you can, getting some stuff that's already pre-made if you're able to afford it. And then I would say a big part of it is just trying to kind of come up with your own personal routine. So maybe looking at your schedule and being like, okay, maybe I have Saturdays are a little bit lighter of a day. Maybe that's my day. I'm going to spend a couple hours that I probably didn't normally do, but now I'm kind of in a place where I might need to, and I'm going to go grocery shopping, take it home, do a little bit of prep work so that by the time Monday comes, and if you're working, then you have something in the fridge that might already be made. So it's not like every night you're like, oh gosh, what are we going to cook? So just getting somewhat of a routine, I think, is helpful.
Sure. Yeah. This is so, yeah, the simplification and then looking at and thinking like what's actually reasonable for me to do. Right.
Yes.
Right. It doesn't, and I guess, right. Not having to be, it doesn't have to be whatever my ideal of perfect is. Right.
No,
And
not at
so,
all.
yeah. And so that, yeah, though, so you see, that's something that's actually interesting to me because I know that one thing that, um, from what you've mentioned, right, like trying to let go of these kind of maybe disordered or unhealthy relationships we have with food, like so, and maybe letting go of this idea like this is a good food, this is a bad food, and if I'll be good if I only eat good food,
Yeah.
like that kind of thing. Like, so what is, so with someone that's just starting, or someone who is just really trying to like look at this for the first time, what's some things to kind of let go of this idea of like good versus bad? Because I know simplification, you just talked about that, but I think, yeah, it would be, I could see it might be difficult for someone to be like, okay, all right, so I'm doing simple stuff, but like I'm eating like, like whatever the Kroger brand, whatever, right? And like I'm just like, and so how, what's one way to just like, before you start getting into like, all right, this food has certain health benefits versus this food does not, like how do you like take a step back and just kind of like, is it like more important just to get food? Is it like more important to get food in the body first as opposed to like, everything else? That was does that question make sense?
I think so. And absolutely, like the most important part, I think, is getting in like adequate, consistent food intake, right? And I think in today's world, people are so busy that they're going like long periods of time, sometimes without like getting in a snack because they're just doing one thing after another, whether they're a busy mom or a busy dad or whatever, you know? So consistency of eating, I think, super important. And like with that, it's like instead of beating yourself up of like, I had a Pop Tart for breakfast, and maybe that's not the most nutritious thing in the world.
Right.
There's a difference in like, of course, I think probably a lot of your viewers are going to know Pop Tarts are nutritionally different than a salad.
Right. Right.
There's very different nutritional value between those two things. However, if I eat the salad and I'm feeling like glorious and look at me and I'm amazing, and then I eat a Pop Tart and I want to like, I'm like now thinking constantly about how bad of a decision that was. And I can't believe I did that and I need to be better. Then I would say, you know, that's kind of a problem because how much of, and this could be maybe a question for your viewers to ask themselves, is like, how much of the day am I spending on thinking about like food in that negative way that I just outlined, or their
Right.
body or exercise? And if that's a pretty high percentage, let's say 70% of their day is like thinking about this stuff, then, you know, think what else they could do at that time if it wasn't disordered. You know, they could probably spend a lot more time with their family, or build new, healthier connections with other people, type of thing. So I don't know if that kind of answered your question or
No,
not, but
no, I think it does. I think I did go off there a little bit, and I apologize for that. But I think that, yeah, no, that definitely kind of touches, because I think what I was wondering is like, so what? Yeah, what's the paradigm that we want around food, right? And so maybe as far as simplification is concerned, looking at, okay, like the most important thing right now is that I'm eating something because I'm like super stressed, right? And like, and like my body needs food. And so, all right, let's just start where we can, and then we'll worry about when we're able to deal with it, like maybe being more conscientious about what we're eating, that kind of thing.
exactly. And I follow an intuitive eating model. And so the last step of intuitive eating is called gentle nutrition. And I think the reason why it's the last step is because if somebody has a disordered relationship with food, they kind of need to do the first few steps first of like kind of neutralizing that relationship of like food is food. The broccoli is going to nourish my body, and so is that delicious cake is going to nourish my body, and one's not better than the other. If I eat the cake, I'm not a worse person because of it. And they got to kind of work through that phase to then become aware of like, okay, you know, what foods do actually feel good in my body. If I ate cake every single day, 7 days a week, a big, nice portion of it, my body might physically not feel super, super great. Then again, I do mostly eat ice cream on a daily basis, and my body feels great, great with that. So it really depends, right? And that's
Right,
like gentle
right.
nutrition, and that can kind of be towards later stages.
Sure, sure, sure. That makes sense. And so uh, that I did have a question though. So I guess say someone, because one issue with divorce, right, is that it's a time that's kind of tight financially for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so it's something that's like, so like when you start to become a little bit more conscientious, right? If you have like the idea, it's like, okay, we're just gonna like, step one, we're going to feed ourselves when we need to feed ourselves, and doesn't matter like, necessarily what exactly that is, so long, like if when someone starts to like understand that, get that, and then when they start moving towards like, I guess what you're talking about, gentle nutrition and stuff like that, I think, you know it might be, I could see for someone who's kind of strapped financially, it's like, I think I've heard this a lot of the kind of like, oh, I'd like, I would eat better if I had more money or something like that kind of thing. And so like with that, how would you break down like a concern like that?
That's also a good question. I'm thinking of like a family member who is also going through or just, finished her divorce, and
Hmm.
it is such a big barrier. And at the same time, I think that there are so many ways that you could still have like gentle nutrition in your life, even if you are really on a tight budget. For
Sure.
example, this morning we had a little bit of spinach, like welted spinach on our English muffins, along with an egg and stuff like that. And so I did the frozen spinach instead of the
Right.
fresh spinach. So anytime that you can choose like frozen or canned, they're typically cheaper options than like fresh. And honestly, I can't taste the difference between me welting fresh spinach or me putting some frozen spinach on a pan.
Right.
One's just kind of cheaper than the other. And what's interesting is they're very equivalent as far as the nutritional value that you're going to get if you're choosing like frozen stuff, like frozen veggies and
Sure.
fruits versus fresh. They're about the same. So basically, you know, if they can go more of that route.
Sure.
And I would say the biggest thing though is because most people are super strapped for time, they end up eating out quite a bit.
Right. Right.
And that's kind of where the money tends to be pulled. But so
Sure.
again, it goes back to like looking at your schedule. What's like one day that you could do some meal prepping? Because if
Right.
you have some stuff in your fridge that is just easy to pull out, especially the protein. If you could just pull out a protein most nights of the week that's already made, then you're going to be eating at home a lot more than eating out.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for answering that question. Yeah, that's I'm finding that that's actually very useful for me to hear, even though, you know, I'm completely, yeah, right. Not going through a divorce or anything like that, but yes, that's just general. As I think anybody who would watch this would definitely, I think, benefit from hearing that. And so, yeah. Well, we're coming close to the end here, and so Kayla, I wanted to give you the opportunity, if there's anything that we haven't discussed that you wanted to speak about. I just wanted, if you had any closing thoughts, I wanted to give you the opportunity to share those. It's okay if you don't, but if you have them, feel free.
I mean, I think if any of this resonated with any of your viewers, you know, I have 4 dietitians who work for me, and we work with eating disorders, but also folks with disordered eating, or just folks who are needing some help to like figure out their routine in life and help with the finances. So if they're wanting services, they can go to that website and we could kind of help them along.
And what is that website and contact information one more time for those folks?
So Kayla Jessop nutrition.com is my website. And then my email address is kayla@kjnutrition.net. So either way works. And we also offer a RODBT skills class that's virtual. So if somebody maybe doesn't have a lot of food related struggles, but they are struggling with like coping skills or how to take care of themselves better after going through something pretty major, then that's like another service that my practice offers as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for your time.
Yes.
But that'll conclude our interview for today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye.